talking a lot about grief recently. Eddie lost his mom a few weeks back, and I lost my mom back in 2007. And my dad has Alzheimer's, and so grief is fresh for us right now, and we've been talking a lot about it, and we believe that, whatever's helping us, maybe it'll help you. And so we just thought we'd share some of our conversation with you a little bit today about grief.
Yeah, one of the first things that kind of stands out to me, and that I've shared with some of my siblings, is grief is not natural. I really believe that when God created Adam and the woman in the garden, they were not created with a death gene. They were created to literally live forever. So we struggle with grief. We wrestle with how to experience it, how to process it, what's normal, what's not normal. Mm-hmm. And I really think a lot of it's individualized. How you process grief is how you experience that loss, then how you live through it, how you find coping mechanisms. Some are healthy, some are not healthy, but it's a very unnatural thing that the grace of God can help make natural or supernatural for us.
That's good. And one of the other things we've talked about is that our culture doesn't really make an allowance for grief. In some cultures, when there's a death, there's a mourning period. You might dress a certain way or and have time away from your normal life to grieve, and we don't really have that in our culture, but we feel like it's just so important to make room. I mean, you might not be able to take time off from work, but in that immediate time after some sort of loss, it's important during those initial stages of grief, especially if it was unexpected. But loss is loss. To make time to process through that grief, it's huge.
Yeah, I think there was something that was kind of lost in American culture when we adopted kind of cavalier John Wayne kind of mindset, suck it up, buttercup, and not giving each other room to process and to feel and to move through things. And we're here at the beach today because of the next thing we want to talk about. We decided that one of the things that's helped us the most is this idea that grief can kind of come and go like waves.
Yeah, it does. I remember after my mom died, I lost my grandmother, and she raised me, so I had significant loss. But it would come in waves, and sometimes at the most inopportune moments when I didn't want to stand in the middle of Walmart and cry. I didn't want to be having a conversation with someone I barely knew and break down in tears. But you know what? It comes.
Yeah, and not only is it cyclical, that when it comes, if we don't deal with death along the journey, it compounds. And so the next time we experience a loss, that it seems worse. I remember one day after my brother died a number of years ago, I was in an elevator at the hospital in Dalton. I don't know if you remember that story. And this guy walked in, and he reminded me of my brother, and then he got off the elevator, and then this another family got on. They started talking about the loss of a family member, and it was like they were describing our family some 6 hours away by car. And so it just compounds, it builds. You have to make room to deal with the waves when they come, and you have to process those. And it's not wrong, it's not bad, it's just how you handle it.
It's good, it's important. And one of the other things we talked about is the fact that a lot of times we think in our culture grief is just about the death of a loved one. Grief is not just about death, it's about loss. It's about the end of something. It's something that can never be again. Maybe a divorce, the broken friendship, an animal passing away is painful. It's very difficult. Another thing, retirement. When you're at the end of your working life, that's a loss. It's over. That's a season that's never
empty
done.
Nest.
Oh yeah, your kids leave, and it's over. It doesn't. You don't go back.
You have to process that, at least in the natural, what can never be again. Of course,
Absolutely.
We as Christians, that's why Paul says we don't grieve as those with no hope, because there's always the room of supernatural. And for those of us that are born again Christ followers, there is eternity, there's heaven. Like we use the phrase, we lost our mom, we lost our grandmother, but we didn't lose them. We know exactly where they are, and we're going to join them, but we still have to process that. Talk about that for a second.
Well, I think that for me, processing was writing in my journal. It was talking through what I felt. Sometimes grief is surprising. I I found some surprises after I lost my mom. The way I thought I was going to feel wasn't how I really felt, and that was shocking to me. And so then sometimes guilt and shame can come because you think, well, I should feel this way, or I should feel that way after an event or a loss of some sort. And there's no cookie cutter way to feel or process, but it's about acknowledging this is how I feel. And we always teach people that emotions are important. They get a voice, but not a choice. So we have to be careful when we're grieving and we're in a place of raw emotions that we don't make decisions we're going to regret later, that we are feeling what we feel, but knowing that they're emotions, which make a wonderful servants, but terrible masters.
Yeah, your emotions and grief especially, it's a lot like you've bought groceries and you forget to take them out of your trunk. If you don't take them out and process them, eventually the rot, the stink, the pain will tell you, oh, you left chicken in your trunk.
Exactly.
And so you've got to get it out of the back of your car. You've got to let those things come up out of your body, out of your mind, your will, your emotions, and process them. Jesus said this is amazing, Matthew 5:4, in the Beatitudes, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. That He wants to come alongside us in the power of the Holy Spirit and comfort us. Why? Because again, death is not natural, but it's universal. And Paul said it this way, 2 Corinthians 1:4, we comfort those in any trouble with the comfort that we ourselves have received from God. So we think it's important to experience grief when it comes, talk it out, talk to your spouse, talk to a mentor, a friend, a pastor, a counselor, walk through it, work through it, so that you've got healthy tools to help your children, friends, family members, disciples.
And you have to be intentional not to slip into the American default setting, which is let's Netflix and eat pizza and we'll think about that tomorrow. There's a time and a place to shelf something, but ultimately we've got to deal with it. We need to process it, because if you stuff or suppress it now, you'll explode and be sick later. Yeah. And so it's an important part of life. It's not fun. It's just not fun.
Yeah, but we look at death as what it is. For the believer, it's a doorway. And so we've put our trust in Jesus Christ, and we know that while we're releasing these feelings here and processing, we know that it's not the final story, that death doesn't have the final story. Jesus has the end of the story. And because we're in Him, we will live forever. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your prayers and your financial support. And if you'd like to follow along, you can watch and follow us on social media. And if you'd like for us to help you with your church or your organization, you can contact us through social media or through our website, which is www.taylorministry.com. God bless you.